Here is an inside look at how I've created the sculpture that I call the magnetic ore alien. It's this humanoid form that is very mixed media, has a lot of components and features to it, and a lot of them are disguised in the final product. So I wanted to give you an inside look to how I built this from the wet clay stage all the way till the end, with a couple pointers on materials that you could also incorporate into your own mixed media work. Initially, I had this idea that you're seeing in this sketch on the left, where I'd have these, I guess, heavy-looking parts that weren't actually heavy being attached to a sculpture. In this case, I had this magnetic ore alien, some space alien made of an ore that we don't know, or is just extremely magnetic, and I could take these large boulders and attach it to the creature without it affecting anything like its actual balance. So I'm going to try to disguise magnets inside of this. I'm going to work with things like cardboard to construct these boulders and then make them match. Here on the right-hand side, you see a finished image of one of the heads that I used for the sculpture. It actually has two heads. This idea of an interchangeable head also comes from that action figure side of my interests. Those eyes that you're seeing there are cubic zirconia, so I inset real cubic zirconia in there because I wanted to have this very interesting and eye-catching twinkle to them. So first it has to be built, and that's what you're seeing here as I've roughed out using mostly a slab method, the whole body. Getting that one arm up, that right hand side. I got the toes included already, just have to add the other arm, start building the head. Just basic hand building stuff. You'll also notice that I'm faceting certain areas of the sculpture. I want it to look like rock, so this is looking more rock-like here than it was in the previous slide. Building that first head, drawing it out with a needle tool first, and then building on the form. Also begun constructing fingers, but the fingers are going to need to be articulated with a plastic joint. So I've cut those off, as you see here. I built that second arm, and I also cut the fingers off there. They'll be fired separately. Here you see the build of the second head, the more insane or rageful head. I wanted to have one look determined and one that's just lost it. So that's what's going on here, referencing the other head for scale. And this is it after it's been totally built. It's still wet, it's drying out, hasn't been fired yet. And a couple of things you'll notice beyond just both of the heads being finished are I built a stand, this rock stand, that can hold both heads. There's a little key in the way that they sit inside of the shoulders and then also inside of that rock base. So this way, the person displaying this has the option to remove one of those heads, not just have it laying on the ground, but plug it in to its own display stand. The other thing that you'll notice is these circular indentations that have been cut into various parts of the body. There's one in each of the palms, one in the chest, one on the back of both of the forearms, two in where would be the shoulder blades, and then one in the back of each of the heads. These are where I'm going to use a sculptable epoxy to glue in neodymium magnets, strong magnets, and they'll be completely disguised and covered, and they'll be able to hold on to any other magnet that I bring into close enough contact with it. So I need to make a spot for those before I even fire anything, because then this is going to be permanent. So then it gets fired. And here it is fired. So this is taken to bisque, and then it's also then taken up to a high fire range, because this will be cold surfaced like a lot of my work. I'm not glazing this, so that wasn't a consideration. All I care about is that clay body getting to its maturing temperature so it's strong and vitrified. So here's the way that it looks before I start getting mixed media with it. Now, a couple things have happened at this point. In the left-hand image, that's earlier than what you're seeing in the right. In the left-hand image, what I've already done here is I've used what are called revolver joints. That's these ball joints that ratchet and move around. It's articulated here and here with each of those 6 fingers. So those have been put into place with sculptable epoxy, slowly but surely attaching each of the finger segments as they set up so that I have these fingers now made. After those had hardened and solidified, I also embedded the magnets. Notice you don't see a hole here or in the back of the forearm. All of those have now been filled with a magnet and then covered over with the epoxy, made to look as if it's the same stone texture as everything else. I spray painted the entire piece with an enamel paint. So it's a tough kind of paint. This was a quick drying enamel. It's very metallic. I wanted these metallic underlevels to the color so that it looks like a magnetic ore creature. At this point, the eyes are still hollow because I have not put in those cubic zirconia. That's going to be one of the last things. Now here in this animated GIF, you're seeing the fingers moving. So that's how they're articulated. They're almost double jointed. They can bend backwards a bit. But what this allows me to do is have him hold on to a variety of different things. Different size of boulders or other objects. There are magnets in the palms of the hands which will help hold things, but I didn't just want an open posed hand with something stuck to it. I wanted it to clutch on and grab onto whatever that object is that it's interacting with. Now, as far as building the boulders goes, I'm still working out potentially better ways to do this, but this is what I did this time around. I've gotten a decent strength of cardboard, still corrugated cardboard, and I'm folding that around and bending it up into more natural looking pieces, and then I'm hot gluing those seams together and then cutting off any excess so that it looks angular enough to be a space boulder of some sort that's similar to the body of this alien. What I've done here is I had some metallic paper which coincidentally is almost identical to this enamel spray paint that I bought. That wasn't really the intention. All I was trying to do with this paper was hide the hot glue itself and those seams. So first step, make the cardboard look like a boulder, and then make that cardboard look just smoothed out a little bit more or faceted on a smaller level so that it looks natural. So here, at this point, while I'm building these boulders, I'm also hot gluing inside of them more magnets. These magnets will allow them to attach. So there is a connection point in the chest right here and then inside of the boulder. Same with here in the boulder and in the back of the forearm. So this was a test. They hold on very nicely, very strong. If you get a weaker clay-based magnet instead of a neodymium-based magnet, those clay ones look black, almost like magnetic filings. They start to come apart. The neodymium magnets are much, much stronger. So that's what I'm using in these. So regardless of how large I get with the boulders, they're still going to stick. Back of the head, on the back in 2 locations, the forearm, the chest, the other forearm, and then this very large one in the hand. And then I can make those fingers grab onto it, clutch onto it. So here it is before I started facing all of those boulders with paper. Ordinarily, say if these boulders were made of clay, this would tip right over. It wouldn't be a strong enough connection for the magnets, and it would make everything lopsided. So it was important to me that I had a material light enough for it to hold on to. Now here are some cubic zirconias, which I ordered from a jewelry supply store, and got various sizes. I measured the diameter of each of those eye openings after it had been fired for the last time. I ordered these red cubic zirconias for the angry head, and then varying sizes of clear CZs for the normal head. Here you see the sculptable epoxy that I've been using in this entire process. I'm going to use it to put these CZs into both of the eyes, respectively, for each of the heads. The stuff that I use comes from a brand called Avis Epoxy Sculpt. So it's a part A, it's a part B. You mix them together in equal amounts, and you have this clay-like substance that you can manipulate. Sets up really, really hard in the end. You can get this in many different colors. I've been working in black epoxy just because that's best for the range of colors that I'm using here. It's best for hiding any of the areas that might show through. And there they are inserted into the eyes. Now, without the boulders attached, this is what the body looks like with both of the heads, each of them looking in a different direction. The determined head, I wanted it to be looking at you with the boulder behind his back, as if it's about to throw it directly at the viewer. And then the other one is sort of looking upwards, almost like it's ripped something in half. Here it is, holding a couple of those boulders. Now you'll notice the sculpture's gotten darker than that bright enamel spray paint that I had put onto it. The reason why is I've added oil paint, taken black oil paint and rubbed it into everything so that it looks continuous. So those boulders, they're pretty close now. They're covered in paper. They've been spray painted with that same enamel paint, and then they also have been rubbed in with black oil paint just to give this smooth transition between values over that metallic surface, darkening some of the crevices, like here around the legs, the torso, around the neck, implying that it's like an action figure, that it can move, though it really only truly moves in the joints of the hand. It starts to look quite a bit different when it has all of the boulders attached to it, and I appreciate that component to the sculpture. You can change it, it can be modified, even played with to some extent. So there are options on the way that this can be displayed. It can stand on its own, as you see here in the left-hand image, with any number of the boulders removed or added, and have those around, creating some kind of a landscape. Or I have also made this base with rods running up into the legs, in case this was displayed in, say, a highly trafficked area, so someone doesn't bump into the pedestal and cause it to tumble over. As you see here, the overall sculpture looks continuous, but in reality you've seen this is ceramic, stoneware, it's also sculptable epoxy, it's enamel paint, it's cardboard, it's hot glue, cubic zirconias, oil paint rubbed in over the top, and there's even those plastic revolver joints included. Even a wooden base in this particular image over here. So all of those things come together to make one cohesive sculpture. The idea being that it doesn't look like it's made up of as many materials as it actually is. So there it is, the magnetic ore alien, something that I think is interesting to interact with and take advantage of its modular pieces, giving it a different look, whether it's the head or the boulders, each time it's displayed.